Okay, today has been an incredibly significant day. Welcome to the new people who are joining us. What we're doing today is looking into the foundations of our beliefs. Why do you believe what you believe? And it's a very, very important thing to understand what's true, what's real. Do you have a soul? Is there a God? Did God write the Torah? Because everyone wants to live a successful life. And the definition of success is achieving the purpose of life. The definition of success in any area is achieving the purpose. So a successful marriage is achieving the purpose of marriage. A successful business is achieving the purpose of the business. The successful operation is achieving the purpose of the operation. So a successful life is achieving the purpose of life. Therefore you have to know what the purpose of life is. Now there are some spiritual traditions that teach the purpose of life is to meditate until you reach a point of realizing that you don't have a soul, there is no self, and you should detach from this world, do not get married, do not have any money, eat very little food. And that there are some traditions that teach really that the purpose of life is to overcome your sin. You are born a sinner, and a certain man died for your sins. And to the extent that you believe that that man died for your sins, you have now rectified your sin. And if you do not believe that, you will burn in hell forever. Those are very, very different opinions. Either one of them is true and one of them is not true, or neither of them is true. So I'm not going to tell my whole story. We've probably got some pictures here. We did this before. I'm not going through it. That's when I met Floyd. Well, that's when Floyd Money Mayweather met me. Bigged up to me, Floyd. Bigged up. He's 50 fights, 50 wins, 27 knockouts. Worth $1.3 billion. I'm worth 1.3 shekels. And he bigged up. He's like, "Where are all the great black men here, Rabbi?" And I said to him, "What makes a man great, Floyd? That's a knockout there. Bam." I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but that was Floyd. Basically, I lived in Asia for 6 years. For those of you who don't know, I speak Thai, Japanese, Hindi, and Korean. Got a black belt in Taekwondo, brown belt in Aikido. 10-day silent meditation retreats. Did all of that. I was searching. I wanted to know what's true. I want to live the truth. And we said that really there's only one valid way you can know what you believe is true. Who here believes they have a soul?
Got him.
Good. So you don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body, but whatever. So how do you know that's true? How do you know that's true? You believe that?
Yeah.
How do you know that's true? You don't, do you? Okay. What's the only rational answer to the question, how do you know that's true? Evidence. What's your evidence for that? I want evidence. How do you know your mother's your mother? Because I got a birth certificate, a DNA test, and photos of me as a kid, and I got mannerisms like her. That's evidence. How do you know there's a country called Japan? Because you've been to Japan and you eat Japanese food, and evidence. It's all about evidence. A rational human being believes what they believe because there's evidence, not blind faith. It's not just like, I believe, or my parents told me, or I want it to be true, or I hope it's true, or life's better if it's true. It doesn't matter what you want and what you believe and what you hope. If it's true, it's true. If it's not, it's not. So people said to me, wow, you travel the world, and didn't you notice that all religions are just different paths to the same truth? And I said, no, I noticed that they're not. They're different paths to different truths. They say very different things. So I said to myself, before I die, I want to work out what is true, and then I want to live my life according to that. That makes sense. That's called living a well thought out life. That's a very rational thing to do. The only way to do that is, how do I know what's true? What has evidence? So I asked my Buddhist masters, how do you know this is true? No evidence. Hindus, true, no evidence. Christians, how do you know it's true? No evidence. Came to Israel eventually after 6 years. Not going to tell the whole story. You're going to buy my book. And I asked, how do you know it's true? They said, learn Torah. I started learning Torah. I said, this is very deep and powerful and amazing. But how do you know it's true? And they didn't say, just because I was told it, that's what I believe. They said, we have evidence that there's no way a human being could possibly have written the Torah. There's things in the Torah that no human being could know. So for example, what would you like to see in the Torah that might be evidence that there's no way a human being wrote that? things that no human being could know when it was written. Extraordinary predictions. Is that what you're going to say?
No, I was going to say how all fish have scales. All fish have
Okay,
scales.
things that people couldn't know. Fine. So very quickly, what you've done so far. First, you did the 7 wonders of Jewish history, in which you saw that the Torah, remember, we've got to understand that the Torah was either dictated by God to Moses 3,338 years ago and then for another 38 years in the desert, or it was written by human beings 2,500 years ago. The main school of biblical criticism, called the documentary hypothesis, they even admit that the Torah scroll that we have today, which is the same in every shul in the whole of the planet, in a Orthodox shul in Alaska and a conservative shul in France, Reform shul in New Zealand, the fact that the Torah scroll all over the world is exactly the same, that's already miraculous, that it was passed down so well. But even biblical critics who say God did not write the Torah, they say that this document 2,500 years ago. So if I find things in the document that nobody could know 2,500 years ago, I'm pretty sure a human didn't write it. So we saw the 7 predictions. Number 1, we're going to be an eternal nation. That's an extraordinary prediction. No other nation survived. There's no Canaanites and Jebusites and Parasites, whatever they are. There are no nations left. We're still here. I'd still put that in my book, by the way. Why would I still put that in my book? Even though it's an extraordinary prediction that's very unlikely to come true, why would I still put it in my book? I want you to start thinking. You have to question what I'm saying. You've got to work this out. Extraordinary prediction, but I'm going to put it in my book. Why?
Well, good while it lasts.
No, good while it lasts, but then it doesn't last and then I'm proved false. It's a stupid thing to put in my book, because if it doesn't last then I'm proved false.
To prove the validity.
It can't fail.
Because?
If it doesn't come true, then there's nobody to say that.
There you go. If it doesn't come true, then we're dead. We're going to be around forever. Either we are, which is great, or we aren't, which is who cares and whatever. So it's something that is extraordinary, but I still put it in my book. But then the next 3 predictions, I wouldn't put in my book. We're going to be exiled from our land. That's very bad thing. No one does negative predictions. In fact, whoever wrote the Torah was either God or the most anti-Semitic person who ever walked the face of the planet. Because the whole Torah is about how bad the Jewish people are. Golden calf and spies and Moshe hit the rock and no other holy. I've read, believe me, I've read the Quran and the Christian Bible and the Bhagavad Gita and the Dharmapada. I read all the books. No one's got predictions at all, by the way, let alone negative predictions about themselves. We're going to be exiled, few in number and hated. That means you're going to not survive. You have to be supernatural to survive those 3 conditions, and yet we did survive those 3 conditions. And then it says, and not only are you going to survive, but you're not going to be some little gypsy nation, you're going to be a light unto the nations. You're going to be the most great nation that ever walked the face of the planet. How could it be that 0.2% of the world population, out of their land, consistently persecuted, are the greatest nation on the face of the planet? 22% of Nobel Prizes, 0.2% of the world population. All morality comes from the Torah, all spirituality comes from the Torah. We've given the world much more than any other nation. The next prediction was actually supernatural. Everything I've said so far is extraordinary. This is supernatural. We know for a fact that 2,500 years ago, the land of Israel was a lush, flourishing place. It was called the Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia. But then, over the last 2,000 years, it became a desert. The Romans, the Byzantines, the Ottomans, they couldn't make the land flourish at all, which is crazy because it was the most fertile land. And it turned into a desert. Whoever wrote the Torah at the time that Israel was flourishing said that when the Jewish people are exiled for the land is going to turn into a desert. It's going to become desolate. Predicting climate change is a supernatural prediction that actually become true. And then finally it says at the end of days, we're going to come back to our land, which is that's what we're doing right here. So we've got a list of 7 predictions that are extraordinary. One of them is completely supernatural. They're contradictory. If you are going to be exiled for your number and hated, you're not going to survive. And even if you do survive, you're not going to be a light to the nations. And there's no way that your land is going to go on strike just because you're not there. And if you, to actually come back to the land, how many people spoke Hebrew 100 years ago?
Barely.
No one. No one spoke Hebrew 100 years ago. They spoke Yiddish and Arabic. And now we've got a revived language. We've got 8 million people in India who speak Hebrew. Fine. What else did you do? You did ID info?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Torah says that we're going to have something called kashrut. That already is not human. I lived in Asia for 6 years. They are vegetarian, don't kill anything. The rest of the whole planet, 2,500 years ago, ate anything you like. I ate snake once. Yes. I've done tshuva for everything. They ate no meat, the rest of the world ate meat. Suddenly, 3,000 years ago, someone comes along and says, I'm going to make a religion. What I'm going to put in my religion, I'm going to put don't kill, don't steal, day off a week, black boxes on your head and arm, weird, I'll do it, whatever, shake leaves and lemons, straight, I'll do it. Why would you come along and say, now there are certain animals we can eat and some we can't? You can't have camel's milk. Why not? We're in the desert. No, because it's not kosher. What does that mean? Why is it not kosher? Just the idea of kosher is weird. You can't have any seafood. But we live on the Mediterranean. That's half of our trade gone. That's half of our diet gone. It's a very, very bad thing to have in your society. No human being setting up a religion would ever come up with the laws of kosher. But then it says something even more crazy. In order to be considered a kosher animal, you need 2 signs. What are they? Kippah and tzitzit. You need kippah and tzitzit. 2 signs. So you need split hooves, chew the cud. Split hooves, chew the cud. That's completely random. Who made that up? Oh, I'm sitting in the desert 2,500 years ago. Well, what animals should we eat? The split hoof, chew cud ones. Very weird. But then it says a completely impossible thing to know. It says the suina, the pig family, is the only animal on the face of the planet who has fully cloven hooves but doesn't chew the cud. How do you know that? Have you been to Alaska and Australia and Argentina and Asia? So all you have to do is, in the next 2,000 years, find one animal with fully split hooves that doesn't chew the cud. You've disproven the book. So I put something in my book that has no benefit of putting it in the book. I don't gain anything by putting it in that book at all, but it has an immense risk. It completely makes my book completely falsifiable very, very easily. And then we learned about the fish as well. The sages say that there is no such thing under the water that has scales but no fins. How do you know that? You know everything under the water, and we've found that. So fine, that was that. What else did you do? Mass revelation you just did. Mass revelation. Every single religion on the face of the planet started with one person having a revelation and then saying that God spoke to me, and then persuading everyone else God spoke to me. And everyone's like, yay! Only one religion. There's a unique religion in the whole, and there's thousands of religions in the world. Every single religion starts with one person having some kind of revelation and then get persuading people, which you can do if you're charismatic enough. You can persuade people. There is one religion, try and guess which one it is, that actually says no, every single man, woman and child heard the voice of God personally and directly. Which one do you think that is? Not Islam? No, that was just Muhammad who said that the angel Gabriel spoke to him. Any other? Anyone? Judaism. Yeah.
Oh, what was the question?
So there's one religion that says it wasn't one person. God spoke to every single man, woman, and children. Now, which is a much better claim? That I heard God speak, or we all heard God speak? We all heard God speak. Why didn't everyone else make that claim then? If I was starting a religion, which claim would I use?
No.
I heard God speak, or we all heard God speak? We heard God speak. So why didn't anyone else ever do that if it's a much better claim? So the answer is you can't make that claim if it didn't happen. You can't persuade a whole nation that they heard God speak if they didn't hear God speak. A very strange thing. Anything else we did? Those. Brilliant. So now we basically know that the Torah, the 5 books, are not human. They were dictated by a divine being to Moses, and he wrote it down in the desert. I know that for sure. There are 19 other books. They're called Nach, the Nevi'im and the Ketuvim. And we say that those were not dictated by God.
We also did that with Rav Dov Ber.
Great.
We missed covering that. Just saying.
Fine. So we're going to show you an example. We say that Nach was not written by God, but it was divinely inspired. It was written with Ruach HaKodesh. So we want to start seeing some things in the Nach that suggest that this was written with divine inspiration. So we're going to look at this one now. Megillah Esther. Has everyone heard of the Megillah? Have you heard of the Megillah Esther?
I can indeed say that I have heard of Megillah Esther.
Have you read the Megillah Esther?
I have read it within one of the old school Chumashi, yes.
Excellent. So, we read the Megillah Esther on the festival of Purim. Now, Megillah Esther means the scroll of Esther. The word Megillah, the root of the word Megillah is Megaleh, which means to reveal. That's why a scroll is called a a Megillah because you open and you reveal what's written in it. So it means to reveal. Esther is the name of the queen, but what does the Hebrew word Esther mean? Hidden. So it actually does mean the scroll of Esther, but it also means revealing the hidden. Revealing the hidden. So there's something that does not appear in the Megillat Esther that you would expect to appear in the Megillat Esther. What's that? Hashem's name does not appear in the Megillat Esther. And it's basically teaching us the opposite of Pesach. Pesach is teaching us open miracles, that God controls nature openly. Purim is teaching us that the world is controlled by God behind the scenes. God is actually controlling it, because you all know the story. We'll do it very quickly. Jews exiled from Israel, first temple exiled into Persia, stop following the Torah. What happens when Jews stop following the Torah? Anti-Semitism. Haman, boo. Haman, boo. Haman arises. He wants to wipe out all the Jewish people. Final solution. We went to the king's party. Shouldn't have gone to the king's party. And then someone tells the king to kill his wife, and the king needs a new wife, so then he gets a wife, and it happens to be a Jewish girl, and then there's a plot to kill the king, and Mordechai happened to hear the plot to kill the king and told the king and saved the king's life, and then the king happened to not be able to fall asleep, so he read the books and he said, did anyone reward Mordechai? And they said no. So then he called in Haman to say, what should I do for the person who wants to be rewarded? He thought it was him, and he said, you should do this. And then Mordechai received the reward, and then Haman built the gallows for Mordechai, but then Haman was hung on the gallows. Basically, we see that there's so many coincidences, so many. At some point you're like, that's not a coincidence. Everything's happening perfectly as it needs to happen. That's basically the story of the Megillah Esther. We actually see lots of places in the Megillah where the Roshei Tevot, the first letters of 4 words in a row, or the last letters are Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. So God is mentioned. And also our sages teach us, when the Megillah says HaMelech Achashverosh, the king Achashverosh, is referring to the actual human king Achashverosh. But when it just says HaMelech without the king's name, the simple meaning is the Achashverosh, but it's also hinting to God. So here we go. Here is the Megillah. This is what a Megillah looks like. Font size, same. Uniform writing. It's the same all the way along, all the way along, all the way along, until we get to near the very end. Suddenly, can you see this? You have to be able to see this. It's the same all the way. Suddenly, the one page from the end, we have a crazy formatting change. This is big letters, 2 columns, something crazy is going on here. Now, if I were to go back to Asia and show this scroll to my Buddhist masters who don't speak Hebrew, and I say, Buddhist master, you're probably an Israeli backpacker, by the way. Buddhist master, can you please point to the most significant part of this story? Where do you think it'd point? Why? Because it stands out. There's this huge anomaly. It's saying, look, Darshani, something's happening in this part of the text. Something's happening. If I gave this to every human on the face of the planet, apart from someone who knew what it was saying, and said, what is the most significant part of the story? What would they say? They say this. And yet, if you actually look at what it says, it's totally insignificant. I made this PowerPoint, so it's my personality in PowerPoint form. It's a totally insignificant part of the story. What's going on here? This is at the end of the story. Haman's been hanged. We had this war. And in Shushan, the capital, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men. And also Pashandata, and also Dalphon, and also Aspata, and also Perata, and also Adari, and also Aseret B'nai Haman. It's basically the name of 10 of Haman's sons who were killed in the war. That's not significant. I don't hear about their names before. I don't hear about their names after. I don't need to know their name. How many sons did Haman have? Does anyone know how many sons Haman had?
400.
There are 4 opinions. 30, 40, 90, 208. Very busy boy, probably not one woman, but lots of sons. Out of all of those sons, only 10 of them were killed in this war. Why is that significant? And secondly, every single list you see in the Megillah of names just says the name. It doesn't say and also, and also, and also, and also. So, do you know who else noticed this strange anomaly in the text? Our holy sages. It said in the Gemara, in the Talmud, Megillah 16b, why is this funny formatting? Because these names are a shira. They are a song. Because they are a song, that explains why it's written like this. That makes sense, doesn't it? What is that? That's not a song. Well, that is weird. Lots of weird things are happening here. So, this is what I worked out. There are 2 songs in the Torah, the Song of the Sea and Ha'azinu, and they both have formatting changes. So there must be something to a song beyond just being a song. The sages of the Gemara looked at the formatting change, looked in the Torah and says, wow, formatting changes are for songs, so this is a song, but it's clearly not a song. So what else do we know songs are? I wish I'd brought all the Rashis, but song is prophecy. As Yashir Moshe is in the future. It's talking about when Mashiach comes. The whole of Ha'azinu is talking about different things that happen in that. So we have this idea of a shirah being some form of prophecy, talking about the future. Why about Va'et? Va'et, 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 Va'et. Do you know who else asked this question? Say, our holy sages.
Holy sages.
Yeah, how did you know? The Talmud in Ketubot and the Midrash, and many places says Va'et comes to add an extra person or thing that isn't explicitly mentioned. If it says Va'et this, it's including twin sisters or something that's not mentioned. So when it says Va'et in this list, it's basically saying Pashandata and also someone not mentioned. Dalphon, and also another list of 10 people who aren't mentioned here. Va'et is coming to include a whole other list of 10 people. So here we go. We've only got about 10 to 15 minutes left. You have to stay with me because this is the most mind-blowing thing you're ever going to see in your whole life. Great opportunity for the Jews. In Shushan, the capital, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men. The next thing it says, the king said to Esther, what is your petition? Basically, what do you want, Esther? I am the most powerful human on the face of the planet. I rule over 127 nations. Oh, Chai Sarah this week. I rule over 127 nations. I can give you whatever you want. What would you ask for? Who wants to be Esther? Anyone? Esther? Esther? Esther. I'll give you anything you like. What do you want? We finished the war. I'm feeling generous. What do you want? I'll give it to you. Go back to Israel. A safe space in the kingdom where Jewish people are never attacked ever again. Immunity from the law. No taxes for the Jewish people. Something. Lots and lots and lots of money. You'd ask for something very, very significant. If Donald Trump came up to you and said, I'll give you whatever you like, you'd ask for something. So let's see what Esther asked for. Come with me, everyone. Come on, Esther. On behalf of the Jewish people, ask for something significant. If it please the king, let it be granted also tomorrow, as was done in Shushan today, and let the 10 sons of Haman be hanged. Throw up a brick there, baby. That's so weird. Isn't that weird? Are you freaking out?
He's
He's not sleeping. He's in deep thought. God forbid. It's a Jew. This is weird for a few reasons. Number one, it's not a significant thing to ask for. So that's weird. Number two, can you please hang the 10 sons of Haman? Who is she talking about?
They just hung there and hung.
They're dead! We just killed them! Hey king, would you please hang the dead people? Do you think Esther was like this psychotic vampire, like Xena warrior princess weird? That's a very strange thing to ask for. One reason it's actually strange is it's so not significant she didn't need to ask for it. David HaMelech, he used to hang some of his dead enemies, and Yeshua hanged dead people. So we hang dead people. It's the thing we do. Very strange. The second strange thing about it, she says tomorrow. Not today because I'm getting my nails done. Can we do it tomorrow? Machar. So our sages say a very interesting thing. When it says machar, there is a tomorrow which is now. So when she said do it tomorrow, she literally meant tomorrow. In the next verses in the Megillah say that they did hang these dead sons. But there's a tomorrow which is later. Machar is also referring to future. So now we have in these 7 verses, so many different weird things and anomalies, including 3 things that reference hidden things. Firstly, the formatting changes the song, that's prophetic. Secondly, Be'et is adding extra people. And thirdly, Machar is tomorrow, the future. So something strange is going on. There's some prophetic stuff happening. Now we have an idea in Jewish called Maisa Avot Siman Abanim, which means history repeats itself. We see patterns in history over time. So for example, we just read about it, this is a good one. Abraham goes to the land of Israel. In the land of Israel there's a famine. So because there's a famine in the land of Israel, he's driven out into Egypt. When he gets to Egypt, Pharaoh basically takes his wife as a slave. The Pharaoh then gets a plague, and then he lets the wife go and they leave with lots of money. And that was foreshadowing the whole Jewish people. There was a famine in the land, they came down to Egypt and Pharaoh made them slaves, and then there was plagues and they came out. We get the idea. So one of the themes that runs throughout Judaism is Yaakov and Esau. Yaakov and Esau. The children of Yaakov are called Bnei Israel. What are the children of Esau called? Amalek. 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 Amalek versus Bnei Israel is the cosmic battle for the world. So we see this coming over and over again. When was the first time that Amalek attacked us?
In the desert.
In the desert. When we left Egypt, in the desert, Amalek attacks us. When we're on our way to Israel, you're going to see that Amalek always raises his head when we're on our way to Israel. Next time, Amalek, Haman, Agagi. Haman was called the Agagi. Agag was the king of Amalek. We know that Haman was from the Agagites. So this is what Amalek really is. Rav Tzadok HaKohen, writing 200 years ago, says there are three foundational traits of Amalek. Number one, they prevent Israel from their perfection and perfecting the world, the foremost evil amongst nations. Number two, they are against conscience, ethical conscience, moral perfection. And number three, they're against the Brit Milah. Can you think of any other nation, the most evil nation on the face of the planet, that decided to wipe out all the Jewish people just as they were making their way back to Israel after 2,000 years? Nazis. Clearly, we had the first wave of Aliyah in the 1890s, and so the Jewish people are starting to come back to the land of Israel. Then you get the most evil nation on the face of the planet decide, I'm going to wipe out all the Jewish people. Hitler, Yimach Shemanu himself, said this. He said these things. The war for world domination will be fought between us, the Germans and the Jews. It's true we are barbarians. We're against conscience and morality. The Jews have inflicted two wounds on mankind, circumcision on the body. He's basically saying he's Amalek based on Rav Tzadok. I don't think Hitler studied Rav Tzadok. So what's this? We really have this precedent. We have saying that there's going to be this time in the future Amalek's going to attack us. So in the 1930s, if you went into a synagogue in Berlin in 1932 and they were reading the Megillah, when they got to the names of Haman's sons, they'd cheer extra loudly. They'd be like, yeah, yeah. And you'd say to them, why are you cheering so much? And they'd say, shh, you need to hear everyone. Why are you cheering so much? Because they say, because Haman's sons being hanged, that represents the Nazis. Hitler is Haman, and the Nazis are Haman's sons, so we're cheering because one day we're going to beat the Nazis and we're going to hang them. Who else compared the Purim story to Hitler? Who else compared Haman's sons to Hitler? Guess, just guess.
Esther.
Hitler. In a radio broadcast speech on January 13, 1944, Hitler stated that if the Nazis were defeated, the Jews could celebrate the destruction of Europe in a second triumphant Purim festival. So Hitler knows what's going on. They know exactly what's going on. So let's go. Let's fast forward. October the 16th, 1946. Before you were born, children. What happened on October the 16th, 1946? Front page of the New York Times, October the 16th, 1946. Goering ends life by poison. 10 others hanged in Nuremberg prison for Nazi war crimes. This is now getting a little bit freaky. I've got a text written 2,500 years ago saying that there's some future prophecy saying that Machar hanged the sons of Haman tomorrow, and with the word Ve'et saying there's a list of another 10 people who aren't mentioned specifically. Machar. And then, 2,500 years later, when the Nazis are eventually hanged, eventually beaten, firstly, it's exactly the same amount of people. Exactly the same amount of people. If Goering hadn't committed suicide in prison the night before, it wouldn't have matched, by the way. It would have been 11 people. There's only 10. They were punished in exactly the same way. There's 4 different punishments. There's firing squad, electric chair, poison, and hanging. They wanted to be shot. They said we're soldiers, we should be shot, but they were hanged instead. So they were punished, exactly the same amount of people, punished in exactly the same way for exactly the same crime. Having basically been called beforehand in 1930 saying this is going to happen. So that's very freaky. How many Nazis were on trial in Nuremberg? Not that slide. This slide is Habakkuk newspaper, written on the 18th of October. I just brought this because Bnei Haman, Nuremberg. Bnei Haman, everyone knows that the sons of Haman and Nuremberg, it's the same thing. So there were, this only has a picture of 18, but there were 24 Nazis on trial. 24 Nazis on trial. 12 of them were acquitted or sent to prison. 12 of them were sentenced to hanging. Out of the 12 sentenced to hanging, one of them ran away. That was Bormann. He ran away. We caught him, killed him. Cool. Göring killed himself. So only 10 of them were hanged. If all of them were sentenced, then it would be 24. I actually think there should be 2,500 Nazis on trial. But the fact, out of all the possible Nazis that could be on trial, then all the Nazis that were sentenced to hanging, that only 10 of them actually got hanged, exactly the same as Haman's sons. There could have been 208 of Haman's sons, but only 10 was hanged. That's an incredible coincidence. Are we good? We have an incredible parallel when the first text calls it in the second. It called it shot. Called it shot. That's what's going to happen. So when I first heard this evidence, I was very, very cynical. And I say, you know what? There's enough things that happen in history and enough texts that you're going to find something. Going to happen. I don't want to believe all this like conspiracy theory. Okay, it is very significant, but it could be a coincidence. Until I know the next bit that I'm going to show you now. There are small letters in the Megillah. Small letters in the Megillah. The Midrash to Rabbi Akiva, not written by Rabbi Akiva, written 1,000 years ago, mentions small letters in the Megillah. Every single Megillah scroll on the face of the planet, bring it to me and I will show you the small letters in the Megillah. What's pretty cool is that they are only in the names of Haman's sons. There are no small letters anywhere in the whole Megillah apart from in the names of Haman's sons. What's also very cool is that in 99% of Megillah scrolls that you can bring me from the whole of the universe, there are the same 3 small letters. 3 small letters in the name of Haman's sons. We have found halachic texts which say that there are 2 small letters, 4 small letters, 5 small letters. I think there are 7 different halachic opinions as to how many small letters there are. But if you actually look in the Megillah scrolls that we have, 99% of them have the same 3 small letters. Would you like to see the 3 small letters?
Yeah.
Come with me, children. 1524, the first printing of the Mikros Gedolos, and that became the established form then. They said, we're going to print it. Which halachic version should we print? Well, obviously that one, because that's the one that is obviously the right one. So here we go. These are the 2 oldest Megillah scrolls that we have. This one is from 1460. Can you see the 3 small letters? Taf. The taf in Pashan Data is a small. Shin, small, Zayin. Taf, Shin, Zayin. So we have a small taf, a small shin, and a small Zayin in the letters of the names of Haman's sons. Not scattered all over the Megillah. In this one, taf, shin, Zayin. Bring me every single Megillah scroll on the face of the planet, and I will, in 99% of them, I will show you a small taf, a small shin, and a small Zayin. We have a tradition that there are sometimes small letters and sometimes big letters in the Torah. For example, there's a small aleph in Vayikra, and we say there's a small aleph to show that Moshe was humble. In our whole writings, no one ever explained what these small letters are. I saw actually one place where some guy said the taf is 400 years, but there was never any set, this is what this means. But let's see the significance of this. This is the Aish one, I took a picture, this is a modern one. Tav, Shin, Zayin, Tav, Shin, Zayin, Tav, Shin, Zayin, Tav, Shin, Zayin. What is so significant about Tav, Shin, Zayin? Why do we have all these ancient texts with the small letter Tav, Shin, Zayin? Well, let's go back to the Habakkuk newspaper. It was written on the 18th of October 1946. What was the Hebrew year? What's the Hebrew year now? Tafshin Pei Bab. What was the Hebrew year when the Nazis were hanged?
Tafshin Zayin.
707.
Mic drop. Tafshin Zayin. You've got ancient texts which speak about 10 people who wanted to wipe out all the Jews being hanged for their crime. In that relevant part of the text, it gives hints to the future. It says machal, and it says it's a shira. In that text, it says ve'et, 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 meaning there's going to be another 10 people hanged. And when, 2,000 years later, they were hanged, it was exactly the same amount of people. In the exact year, it is represented by the only small letters in the whole Megillah scroll which appear in the relevant part of the text. That's not a coincidence. Say hallelujah. Tafshin Zayin. Tafshin Zayin. Tafshin Zayin. Tafshin Zayin. People say to me, why did you go from being a Buddhist monk to an Orthodox Jew? And I say, Tafshin Zayin. You can't explain it. No. Someone said, no, maybe someone's making a mistake when they were writing out Megillah hundreds of years ago. I said, what? The exact mistake of the exact year when the exact amount of people was exactly. So let's go for facts. I called her an applied statistician. Number one, there are 3 references to another event. Only 10 sons were hanged. That's 1 in 30, 40, 90 or 208. Only 10 Nazis hanged, at least 1 in 24. Only small letters in the relevant part of the text. Pre-established connection between the sons and the Nazis. 3 small... Go! Anyone who needs to leave, leave now. Okay, you know now.
I wanted to say to it.
Then go to areyouright.org. Are you right? Are you right.org, and all the information is there.
Oh, I think.
And if anyone says to you, you're just being brainwashed, say to them, yes, I might be, help me refute the evidence, go to areyouright.org. And then we'll brainwash them too. 3 small letters, Tafshin Zayin, in the right order. That's 1 in 10,648 chance. Hanged in the exact year, Tafshin Zayin, that's 1 in 1,000 chance. If they were hanged the year before, which they should have been, you know why they should have been hanged the year before? Because the trial ended in July. So the sentence was given in July. So you should be hanged in August. Or even in September. Had they been hanged in August or September, it would have been before Rosh Hashanah, so it would have been Tafshin Bav, it wouldn't have worked. So they kept pushing off until the 25th of September that year was Rosh Hashanah, so it was after Rosh Hashanah. So I asked a statistician to match the small letters in the Megillah to the year they were hanged is a 1 in 10,648,000 chance. That means nothing, no chance, impossible. What is statistically relevant, by the way? What number? 1 in 20. 1 in 20 is statistically relevant. That will go in a science magazine, a medical magazine. 1 in 20. This is 1 in 10,648,000. So I asked the applied statistician to put that in terms that my weak mind can understand. And he said it would be like rolling the same number on a 6-sided dice 15 times in a row. So let's play again. I roll a 3. And then I say to you, wow, I'm feeling lucky. I bet I can roll another 3, $100. Would you take that bet?
Yeah.
Of course you would. 1 in 6. So I roll another 3. 2 3s in a row. And I said, wow, that's crazy. You know what? I just feel I can do it again. $100, $200 this time. Would you take that bet? No.
Switch the
Yes.
dice. Yeah, take it.
You take the bet. It's 1 in 6. Of course you take the bet. Get your money back. So I roll another 3. And I said, oh, wow, this is crazy. You know what? Let's do it again. $400. Win your money back. I think I roll another 3. Would you take that bet? 1 in 6 again.
Yes.
Yes.
Less than
Why
1 in
not?
6.
Pardon?
Now it's
No,
much
every
less
time
than
it's 1 in 6.
Every single time it's 1 in 6.
Every time you roll the dice, it's 1 in 6, man.
It's a lopsided dice.
So I roll 5 3s in a row. 5 3s in a row. And I say, this is crazy, my lucky day. $800. Win your money back, or I'll get another $800. Would you take that bet?
Take any of
I
it.
knew I wasn't
At some point, I've done this with lots of groups. The highest we got was 8. And I was like, you're lying. After 8 3s in a row, you know for a fact that I'm cheating. Because no one in the history of humankind has ever rolled the same number. Now don't waste the rest of your life. You're like, I'll show him. Like 80 years from now, you're going to call me and be like, I rolled 6. That's it. It's not going to happen. It's impossible. So if someone rolls 8 3s in a row, you know they're cheating. In our case, it's 15 and there's no possible way to cheat. Because the text was 600 years old. Other cool things, very quick. This is beyond the evidence. The year 707, Tafshin Zion, has appeared 6 times. There was 707 years after Adam, 1707, 2000. So it was really in the 6th millennia. These are called millennia, by the way. In the 707th year of the 6th millennia, that's when it happened. There is one big letter in the names of Ham and Sons. Guess what it is? A Vav, a big Vav. Vav is 6. So we see there's a big letter for the big units and small letters for the small units. Now, because I'm very, 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 very glad, I want to be honest, if there was a big hey, I'd also bring it, because I'd say, 5 is hey. But those are the only 2 letters I could make a big deal of. It's either Vav and hey, Yud and hey, it's all hidden. Yeah.
Oh.
Now what's this? October 16, 1946, happened to be Hoshana Rabbah. Do you know what happened on Hoshana Rabbah? What is Hoshana Rabbah? This is what the Zohar says. On the 7th day of Sukkot, Hoshana Rabbah, the judgments of the nations of the world is finalized. Judgments are aroused and carried out on that day. So they were hanged on the exact day that our tradition teaches that the evil nations of the world are hanged on that day. Once again, if you're very, very cynical, you can just say, well, some Jewish people knew that and pushed off the execution time. I think that's far-fetched, or as they say in Yiddish, far-fetched. I'm not doing this. Do you want me to do this? Yeah? Okay, very quickly. Very quickly. The Gemara says, Jacob said to Hashem, don't grant the desires of the evil man. This refers to Esau. And don't let him draw out his bit. This refers to Gamamia of Edom. When was the Gemara written? Long time before there was a place called Germany. It's talking about a place of Gamamia of Edom. So Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina said there are 300 crowned princes in Gamamia. 300 crown princes. There's this place called Gamamia with 300 crown princes and 365 chieftains in Rome. Who was Hitler's main ally? Mussolini. Rome was Hitler's main. So William Schreier wrote a book, 1956 I think, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. By the end of the Middle Ages, which had seen Britain and France emerge as United Nations, Germany remained a crazy patchwork of some 300 states. There's lots more, by the way. For example, Haman also had a daughter. What happened to Haman's daughter? Committed suicide. Committed suicide. There's lots of stuff going on. Newsweek magazine, written 12 days later, October 28, 1946, by Kingsby Smith, not Jewish journalist. He was in the room whilst the hangings were taking place. He wrote out, people went to hang, and look what it says in the last paragraph.
Purim 1st, 1946.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's insane.
Here we go. Only Julius Streicher went without dignity. He had to be pushed across the floor, wild eyes and screaming Heil Hitler. Mounting the steps, he cried out, and now I go to God. He stared at the witnesses facing the gallows and shouted, Purim Fest, 1946. That's a strange thing. Very nuts. Now, once again, I don't think he had prophecy because he knew about Purim. Hitler knew about Purim. It's just a very strange thing to say. It's not even the last thing he said. He then said, I'm going to say goodbye to my wife. Why would that was presented as the last thing he said? And why did he have to say the day? Purim Fest, 1946. Tafshin Zion. And just in case you didn't know, Purim is a Jewish feast. Okay. So now we have very, very, very,
Also,
very...
Rabbi, 1946, 10.
What does that mean?
1946, the 10 sons and the 10
Wait, what?
Very cool. I actually read a whole article that took the names of the Nazis and matched it to the names of Haman's sons and showed how they matched. But I thought it was taking a bit too far. Sometimes if you take it a bit too far, you actually lose the power of your argument. So fine. So now, anyone who's a real truth seeker, what does the word Torah mean?
Instructions.
Instructions. Haraya means instruction book. If you want to live the best possible life you can possibly live, then it's good to get the instructions from the creator of the universe, who created the universe and you. But I got to make sure I got the right book. If the Quran's the right book, then I'm doing the wrong thing. And if the Dharmapada is the right book, I'm doing the wrong thing. So how can I possibly know which is the right book? How do I know? How do I know that pig isn't good for me? How do I know that a not Jewish girl can't be my soulmate? How do I know all these things? I've got to make sure that the guidebook is the true, real guidebook. There's only one way you can make sure of that, and that's evidence. Do you have evidence for believing it's the right guidebook? And today has been a whole day of evidence upon evidence upon evidence. There's no possible way a human being writes the Torah, which is very, very empowering. It's an amazing thing. Now, just because we know we're right, don't then become self-righteous. Don't think you're better than other people and you're going to put down other people. In fact, the closer you come to God and the closer you come to truth and Torah, the more loving and respectful you are. It's very important. But when people say to me, say something bad about Buddhism, I say, I don't really have anything bad to say about Buddhism. I don't want to make myself look good by putting other people down. If I don't have enough stuff for myself, then what does that mean? I think Buddhism is actually really great. I just know it's not true. I'm not a Buddhist. Why? Because Buddhism's not true. There's got some nice ideas, but every single idea you'll find in Buddhism or Hinduism that is good and true, I'll show you exactly where that is in the Torah. So now this is very, very empowering. And this becomes the evidence for everything else you believe. Pig is spiritually harmful for a Jew. How do you know that? Give me some evidence for that. Because that's what it says in the Torah, and I can prove the Torah is true. Your non-Jewish woman can't be your soulmate. How do you know that's true? Because it says in the Torah, and I can prove the Torah is true. Everything else we believe, it goes back to this core foundational evidence that we know that God wrote the Torah. And now, there are two parts of Judaism. We say, V'yadata hayam v'hashavaisa levavecha. You should know that it's true. But then real Judaism is, live it, integrate that in a joyful way. Ivdo es Hashem b'simcha, David HaMelech says. So Judaism itself is not about rational proofs. The way you treat your wife, and the way you raise your children, and the way you daven, and the way you learn, and the way you fix your character traits, and the way you're a mensch, that's got nothing to do with the mass revelation. Judaism as a religion is a spiritual and emotional way of being in this world. However, the foundation for the belief has to be rational. It can't be, I believe because I feel it, because I hope it's true, because I was told it's true. That can't be. So we have an extremely strong foundation for our belief, and then on that strong foundation of our belief, then we can be the sort of people who are bringing a light into the world and being kind and loving. Are there any questions?
What if it's like all this is true and the Torah is true and God exists and that's scary?
I hear that. That's an awesome question. If that is scary to you, it means you didn't understand what it is. Because if you understood what God really is and what mitzvahs really are, it wouldn't be scary. It would be very, very, very exciting. If I came up to you and said, I want to teach you how to play the piano. And in my mind, I'm like, you're going to play beautiful music. It's going to be spiritually and emotionally good for you. You're going to entertain other people. But you don't know what play the piano means. And you think it means cut up my own face with a knife. So then, when I say to you, I'm going to teach you the piano, that would be very scary to you because you have no idea what it is. I just made up that mashal on the spot, but I'm going to refine it a little bit next time. But you get the mashal. You do get the mashal.
Yeah.
So if I say to my wife, I say to someone, would you like a massage?
Yeah.
And she thinks a massage is getting hit with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
She'll be like, that sounds scary to me. But if she knows that a massage is oil and feet, then she'll be like, of course I want a massage.
Yeah.
I'll give you another example. Imagine I give my son a $10,000 check for his birthday. He's 3 years old. Do you think he'd be happy?
No.
What if I gave him a 10 shekel coin? Do you think he'd be happy?
Could be.
Definitely much happier than a $10,000 check.
Yeah.
Why? Because he didn't understand what he was holding in his hand. So if you find Torah, God, or Judaism scary, you don't know what you're holding in your hand. Shabbos. So all you have to do is then start learning. What is a mitzvah? What is God? What does God really want from me? And how's a healthy way to grow? So for example, when I became religious and I knew I had to be kosher, I stopped eating seafood, but I ate not kosher chicken and beef. Because I was like, those are tahor animals. Now, not kosher chicken and beef is as equally not kosher as seafood,
Right.
but it was a move, a step. And I think Hashem appreciates that step. It was a step for me.
Right.
And then I stopped eating not kosher chicken and beef, and I ate vegetarian food in a not kosher restaurant. I think that was a step. And that's how you do it slowly. If you come and hear this information and then you suddenly become a fully religious Jew, you're just going to crash. I see it all the time. So there is something called healthy growth. Healthy growth. Let me do it in a healthy way. Let me start integrating this in a healthy way, in a slow and healthy way, and joyful way. Yeah.
When you talked about the land being desolate, you talked about during the First Temple era that the place was fertile.
Flourishing.
And then we have 2,000 years later, Mark Twain's comment that the place is desolate. Is there anything in between that time that mentions whether the land was fertile or desolate?
Yes. Just go to naturalhistory.com. I made that up. It's a well-known thing that this area has been desolate for 2,000 years since we left. That's out of all of this. That's my favorite thing. There was a guy who came to Aish, and he was becoming more observant. And he's an English guy, and his father was a lawyer in England, and he was furious. And he came and he was like, "What are you doing to my son? You're brainwashing him." And I said, "You're a lawyer, aren't you?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "So how do you decide cases? Evidence. So would you like me to show you evidence for the Torah?" And he said, "Okay then." And I showed him, and every step of the way he was saying, "No, you could be exiled because of that, and of course you'll be few in number if you're this, and then you're light into the nations because you value education more than any other people, and it's in your DNA and all these things." And then we got to this one, and he was like, and he was in pain. That he had there's nothing you can say to that one. And he said, "I can't explain that, but it doesn't mean it's true." People say that, or I can't refute what you're saying, but I'm just not as clever as you, so I'm sure someone could. That's a good way to get out of it. There are many good ways to get out of it. Oh,
Rabbi, thank you so much for
the
today.
simcha.
Wow, amazing. I want to ask that I've noticed in talking to a lot of guys, including myself when I started the journey, that you can go as far as you want with intellect, but you hit a certain wall of our generation dealing with comfort and not feeling like it as the main problem. And so how do you face a guy that just doesn't feel like it? What's the first step for him to take?
I think the first step for you to take is completely validate that, because it's hard to daven mincha every day. Well, actually, I love it. But I get how it can be hard to say the same words every day. So the first is, I also have that struggle sometimes. But then once again, it's going to be the same answer. Do you value it? Why do we get up for things in the morning? Because we value them. So let's say, I do this all the time. I speak to groups, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, who finds it difficult to get up in the morning. So they all put their hand up. And I say, well, what if I offered you $20,000 to get up at 4 a.m. and come and do 10 star